with Chapter 5 releasing later this month.
I wanted to give my predictions for what I think will be in the new chapter. Most of my predictions are pretty standard. A lengthy light world section for the festival, a Flower King Dark World, and an Asgore boss or secret boss fight. Most of these are directly hinted at in chapters 3 and 4. There are plenty of mentions of the festival tomorrow. The chapter 4 prophecy mentions the Flower Man trapped in Asylum. And in his fight, Gerson mentions the field of pink and gold burning in an inferno of jealousy. These all paint a pretty clear picture of what chapter 5 will include. But I have another prediction, one which is much more unique. Almost every first area in each chapter is a field of some sort. Chapter 1 has the Field of Hopes and Dreams, Chapter 2, Cyberkill, and even in Chapter 3, the Desert Board is called the Cactus Field. Chapter 5 has the Field of Pink and Gold, but we're to believe that the entire Dark World is the field. If the entire Dark World is only the first area, then what comes after? What about the second and third areas? I believe there won't be one Dark World, but two. And I have a prediction for not only the location of this Dark World, but also the boss of the Dark World. This Dark World is Atlantis. This theory hinges on the connection between the island board from Chapter 3 and the lake in Hometown. It might seem far-fetched to theorize an entire Lake Dark World based off the island board in Chapter 3, but I believe I have enough evidence to make this theory hold water. Water in Deltarune is heavily associated with darkness. Dark fountains, darkness moving like water, and Hell's Roar bubbling from the depths. This leads us to the only two real bodies of water in Deltarune: the ocean and the island board, and the lake. Other than the obvious water connection between the two, there is one more parallel that draws my attention: the circle by the lake and Lover's Peak. The only two large bodies of water in the game, both on a platform right by the water's edge. This is our key to the Lake Dark World. When two lovers stand at Lover's Peak, the Rainbow Bridge will lead the way to Atlantis. This is directly stated and shown within Chapter 3. I believe this is meant to directly connect back to the lake. After exiting Flower King, the lake is directly to our right. The two lovers seems pretty cut and dry. The obvious connection is Susie and Noelle, but I believe it will vary by route. In the normal route, it will be Susie and Noelle. But in the weird route, it will instead be Noelle and Chris, or perhaps the Soul. The sword route is a bit harder to say, as there are no differences in it yet. But I believe Susie and Chris makes the most sense for the sword route. And while it is the only obvious pairing left, the sword route is home to the most overt interaction between Susie and Chris. With two lovers at the circle at the lake, we must now find the Rainbow Bridge. And once again, Chapter 3 gives us our answer. Tenna directly states that the fountains come in two colors: unsettling obsidian and pulsating rainbow. I believe when two lovers stand on the circle, a dark fountain will open from the lake. This all directly parallels the Chapter 3 island board, and thus gives us our bridge to the Lake Dark World, Atlantis. It might seem odd to connect the island board to a real location in the light world, but there is some evidence for this. As we see in the sword route, Tenna's boards are based on a pretty decent game. This game, the original game, is not actually the original. The original game itself is based on another game, and we can find this through one location: the Ice Palace. When we see Noelle and Rudy in the hospital in Chapter 2, they are playing Dragon Blazers 3, and the location they're at is the Ice Palace. The Ice Palace existing in both Dragon Blazers and the original game ties two together. What's more, Dragon Blazers is based off of Lord of the Hammer, as told to us by Gerson. And going one step further, Lord of the Hammer itself is based off the prophecy. This means to some extent, the prophecy can be found not only in Dragon Blazers, but also the original game and even tennis boards. The Ice Palace is found in both Dragon Blazers and the original game. But interestingly, the Ice Palace is found on the island board. This makes it much more likely that the island board, specifically the ocean, is a real location in Deltarune. All this together, we have a solid theory for a Lake Dark World. But now we should speculate as to what actually is in this Dark World. I believe we've seen a glimpse as to what it may look like, specifically in the Undertale Anniversary stream. The stream featured multiple cameos from Deltarune, existing characters such as Spamton and a younger Noelle. I believe the new underwater section shown in Waterfall is teasing this Atlantis. While it may not be one-to-one, this is the first and currently only time an underwater section has been shown in a Toby Fox game. Considering a Lake Dark World would be underwater, this makes it easy to connect the two. Perhaps we'll see some of these NPCs and scenery return, or at least something similar. But there's still one major question surrounding the Dark World. Who is going to be the antagonist? Fish are obviously connected to lakes and water, but what's more, the original fish enemy is found in the body of water. We should then be able to connect the silverfish enemy back to a character in Deltarune. The information we have is a fish grayed out similar to the Goners or the vessel. The silverfish is also surrounded by 4 yellow lizard enemies. The obvious answer is Undyne, and the yellow lizards are Alphas. There is unused Shadow Crystal dialogue saying, "You thought you saw Undyne, frozen in ice." This suggests that Undyne was, or will, be planned to be fought alongside Noelle. But that begs the question, why is Undyne fighting us? And more importantly, why is she grayed out like the Goners? The Unknown Caller in Chapter 4 gives us our first hint. Police, sacrifice, next week. According to the Forgotten Man dialogue, Chapter 4 takes place on a Saturday. With this, next week could be referring to Monday, or it could be Sunday, tomorrow, Chapter 5. This is directly supported by the knight kidnapping Undyne in Chapter 3. But how does the sacrifice turn Undyne into a Goner? In Undertale, the Goners and the Gaster followers are intricately linked, and both are connected to Gaster. Likewise, the vessel is also connected to Gaster through the Goner Maker sequence. But what exactly happened to Gaster to shatter him across space and time? He fell into his creation, which we assume was the core, but perhaps it was something else. Gaster was experimenting with determination. And in Deltarune, one's will is channeled through a blade to create a dark fountain. What if Gaster fell into his creation, a dark fountain? What if this sacrifice is them throwing Undyne into a dark fountain? What if Undyne becomes a second night? Undyne becoming like the night not only explains why we fight her, but also why the silverfish exists. It could even explain the song from the sea, as, according to Onion Sen, it's not a new song. The song from the sea may be Undyne's theme, reprised for a new boss fight. But what evidence is there to support Undyne being the second night? The police sacrifice and the silverfish being the same color as the Goners already gives us a baseline for something happening to Undyne. In chess, there isn't just one night, there's 2 dark nights. Something will certainly happen to Undyne, and it would certainly make sense for there to be 2 nights. But how do we connect the two? I'm sure most Deltarune fans are familiar with the Roots theory, but if you're not, the link to the video is in the description. If we overlay the Manhole dungeon from the original game with Hometown, we will find that many places overlap with one another pretty accurately. The black monster enemy that mimics Chris can be overlaid to the lake. As many know by now, the black monster enemy is initially a black deer, but when the Toriel variable is set to true, the black deer becomes the black monster enemy that we see in-game. This enemy is pretty likely to be the knight, or at least representing the knight. While this can be used as evidence to support Undyne becoming the knight, this may instead point to another conclusion. If we look to the silverfish enemy it is instead overlaid with the entrance to Noel's house. This may instead mean that in the future, Noel's house will become a dark world, and there we may fight Undyne. We could then look back to the black monster enemy who represents the night, and since they are overlaid with the lake, we may instead conclude that we will fight the night again at the lake. The black monster enemy initially being a black deer hidden by the tutorial variable may mean that this may be when we find the knight's identity. Regardless of whether the knight or Undyne is the boss of the lake, one thing is certain. Something will happen to Undyne soon, and at a similar time, we will learn much more about the night. The lovers, the lake, Undyne, and the night. I am confident that Chapter 5 will give us much more of all of these. But all we can do now is just wait and see.